Alright, in this second video of the reassembly of this engine, we're going to install the crankshaft and the camshaft. Got the engine case heated to about 275 degrees, and we've got the crank ready to install. The way it goes in is with the nose down, the front crank throw up. You want to get the correct rods going through in the right position. Like this, and then you can tip the crank back and slide it into the rear bearing holder. So that crank is in, and while things are hot, we can keep working on it. The next thing to install is the front crankshaft slinger. So the slinger will go on next. With the two slinger screws, add a little blue Loctite. And get those tightened down. It can kind of be tricky when this thing is really hot like this. And once you've got those tightened down, again, use a little punch and just stake those screws lightly. Just like that. Following thing to install is the front main bearing spacer. It's the thicker of the two spacers, and its beveled edge goes down towards the crankshaft like this. And then we're ready to install the front main bearing carrier and oil pump gears that we had prepared last time around. So we're ready to install the front main bearing carrier with the oil pump gears installed. The case is still hot, so we'll see if this goes in. Once you've got it started on there, you can use the many-in-one tool. So we've got this tool, they call this the presser bolt, I think, and we're going to also use the sleeve to go on here. So you thread the end of that tool into the nose of the crankshaft. This, and this tool will press that carrier into place. So. And as you tighten this nut, you'll see it pull the front bearing carrier into the case. And while you're doing that, you want to make sure that you don't jam up the oil pump gears by any chance. Make sure you can trim those freely. And pull it into the case like this. Once you've got it drawn all the way into the case, then you can install the 4 13mm nuts and wave washers and the rest of the bolts that go around here. So we will do that. And just take this off so you can see. And again, I'm going to use a little bit of blue Loctite. Wave washer and a nut, 13mm nut on these 4 studs. And then down here around the oil pump gears, there are 4 10mm bolts and wave washers. They are the longer of the bolts here. So start those 4. And then there's 2 shorter 10mm bolts and washers that go up here. Tighten down the nuts and the bolts all the way around to make sure this is pulled all the way into the case. Once you've got the nuts and bolts all tightened down on the rear bearing, on the main bearing, front main bearing carrier, you want to reinstall the sleeve and the tool like we did before. And what this step does is it finishes pulling the crankshaft forward into the carrier. So once that's tightened down, I'll go ahead and finish pulling that crank all the way forward. And that's it. You can remove the tool and the sleeve. One thing I'll be using a lot through these videos is this blocking plate. That's just a piece of MDF that fits over the cylinder studs, and it's really nice for blocking the crank from turning when you're doing operations like that. So with the crankshaft installed and pulled all the way forward into the front main bearing carrier, you'll want to make sure that your connecting rods are lined up dead center in the bores, and measure that or see if they're landing right in the middle like they were before. And you'll also want to just spin the crank and ensure it's turning smoothly and there's no obstructions. The next thing to install is the the crankshaft timing gear. You want to get it really nice and hot, and then you're going to install it on the crankshaft, aligning the slot in the timing gear with the key in the crankshaft. Let's see. Once you've got it in position there, then reinstall the many one tool. Again, we're using the presser bolt, many in one tool, and threading it into there. And then again, by turning the tool, you can pull the timing gear onto the crankshaft. I'm going to have to redo this one because it's pushing the key out. You want to make sure that doesn't happen. If it's not perfectly aligned, you can push the key out. So I'm just going to pull that and redo that. Okay, so I had to pull the timing gear and reheat it and then line it up again with the key. Just make sure when you do that it's going on straight on the key and not pushing it out. And then just tighten the tool to press that timing gear all the way onto the crankshaft. After we've installed the crank timing gear, we're ready to install the camshaft. And you want to note that the crankshaft has a timing mark, a small line scribed on it. I've highlighted it with a Sharpie. And the timing gear also has a line. These two timing lines need to line up when you install the camshaft. So you'll want to align the teeth so those two lines come into alignment. The other thing I've done is I've installed two small M6 studs into two of the camshaft holding holes here. And what that will allow you to do is when you install the camshaft, it will align with this plate so you can install it. You don't have to do that, but it makes it easier. So I've just got those started into the case. Since the case has cooled down, we're going to have to heat it up, but then we're going to install it like this and line up the line on the two timing lines. So since the case is cold, I'm going to heat that up real hot again, and we'll be ready to install the cam. Once you've got the case heated back up real hot, and install the camshaft. And we want to make sure these timing marks line up as we do that. Just like that. And you can see that we've got the timing marks lined up there. Then we can remove these alignment pins. And we can install the camshaft screws. There's 4 of them. Install 2 at a time. Again, using a little bit of blue Loctite on these screws, a good idea. And we can use these screws to finish drawing the camshaft all the way in. Just like this, alternating. And then by rotating the engine, you can get to the other remaining 2 cam screws. Get those installed. And that's how you install the camshaft. We'll get those screws torqued down fully, and I want to just make sure everything spins freely and smoothly once that's installed. The next thing we can install is the oil pump gear. No timing marks to worry about on this. It can go in any position. It's held on by this locking washer and a reverse thread nut. So go ahead and place it on the taper of the oil pump gear. And then this just locking washer fits on there, and then reverse thread 14mm nut to hold it. And once that's tightened down, you can just bend one corner of this locking washer against that nut to secure it. And once that's secured, that nut can't come loose. And then once all the gears are in place, you can check that they're mating nicely and turning freely, and everything is smooth there. The only thing left to do before we install the timing cover is to install the bearing for the nose of the crankshaft. And you can heat that bearing up, and it will slide onto the front of the crankshaft like this. And if it needs some help, then you use the tool once again, presser bolt, like this. And once again, we can tighten the tool down, press on that nose bearing. Both the timing gear and this nose bearing are a pretty tight fit on the crankshaft, so especially the timing gear. then you can remove the tool and the nose bearing is in position. So we're finished on the front of the motor here for now, and we'll turn our attention to the back.